Okay, so this shaila appears both in the Tshuvot of Rav Asher Weiss in volume 3, as well as in the Brisker Haggadah, one of them, whichever one I have on my shelf. No. No. There's multiple. It's one. I assume it appears in more than one, but this is from Rishonim David Soloveitchik. But the shaila is the same in both, right? They want to know whether, like I said, if the person telling the story, the Misaper Yetziat Mitzrayim, is Chayav in the mitzvah of Sippur, but the person hearing the information, being told the story, is not Chayav, is the person being Misaper Yotzei his Chiyuv. Now, like I said, so in Rav Asher Weiss's case, the shaila was, I'll read you just the question.
Why would you even think not right now?
So why would you think not? Here, let me just get it. 1 second. Here was his question. Right, Sha'alta b'ven Eretz Yisrael ha'mitareach b'mei ha'chag etzel aviv b'chutz la'aretz ha'im aviv mekayim al yado et mitzvat v'higata levincha b'leil yom tov sheni shel galiyot v'kasher ben hazeh shoel ma nishtana ha'im yesh bazeh din she'elat haben o shema la'av lachzor v'lomar ma nishtana kedin mi she'ein lo ben v'shoel et atzma. Right, so he asked it in a very subtle way. Right, it's since we know that the Gemara, that the way the halacha is formulated by Chazal is that either the ben is shoel, but if the ben isn't there, right, if there's no one to ask questions, you ask yourself. So does the son asking the questions not count such that the father, assuming it was only this father and the child, the father would have to re-ask the questions to himself without the, and not be quote unquote yotzei, the chiyuv, through his son. Now again, right, the background to the shaila is that, right, while you know that there's a huge machlokes about what a ben chutz la'aretz does in Eretz Yisrael, there's much less of a machlokes the other way around, where the vast majority of poskim, starting with, Shulchan Aruch, say that you don't do malacha, but you aren't mekayim the mitzvahs, midin makom, right, dini makom, minag makom shiyatsu misham. Right?
Okay.
What many Israelis do, right, that they do malacha in private, that's against Shulchan Aruch, and all the Nosekim except for the Taz, and most modern poskim, Haredi, modern Orthodox, Dati L'mi, doesn't really matter, right? It's a very small minority of poskim who, whatever. It's one of those things that I get hung up on, because I just don't understand how the Taz became, like, the sheet everyone relies on.
Well, Penda just holds down a minhag, goes in Derabanan, and they're in, other way around. Penda holds a minhag.
I don't know.
Not a that's mutter.
Well, that's the Taz is only Maras Ayin, right? Shulchan Aruch says Makom Shanagu. Anyways, now the simple answer to this question is, what do you think? Right? What would you say, Misvara?
Is there a chiyuv to ask questions? Like, I don't know much about this chiyuv.
Well, so again, right? If you look in Psachim, oh come on, you guys know this. If you look in Psachim, it says Kana bin Shoel, right? And if there is no son, right? Okay. Okay. Okay, right. The background to yes, the Rambam says the same thing. The background to this is that it seems to be, and the Briskers are very into this, but it seems to be pshat in the Gemara, is that the chiyuv of Sippur Yetziat Mitzrayim is derech sheila v'tshuva.
Standard is not on, but it looks like the 8 is on.
Right? Meaning it has to be done through question and answer.
Sure. So it's machlokas whether it's din meiser or din kiyum. Or safek din meiser.
Okay, before you give me lamdas, give me a good raya for one of the sides.
I want to
Give me simple evidence for one of the sides here.
I guess we should catch up time.
Okay, so basically the question is, that's posed both to Rav Asher Weiss and we'll see to Rishonim Dalet Soloveitchik, is whether if you have a child, a son, who's a ben Eretz Yisrael in Chutz La'aretz, and therefore he's not Chayav Mikra Din in Yom Tov Sheni, can the father be Yotzei his Chiyuv of Vigata Levincha to the son The way Rav Asher has it is he Yotzei the question of the son, or the son asks the questions, or does the father have to ask it to himself as if there is no son there? So give me Misvara, guys, what would you think?
Zev got a nice svara that he thinks it would be, it would be okay.
Why?
Because everyone agrees that if your son's under bar mitzvah, it's okay.
Good. I think the simplest raya to it is exactly what Zev says, right? Is that the question is misguided because the classic, whoever said it, right? Whichever one of you said it, right? I think you're right that the simplest pshat is to say, of course you're Yotzei, because the fact that this is a mitzvah of chinuch d'oraisa, let's say, but it's, right, no one says that, you can't have your child below bar mitzvah ask the questions, right? Everyone understands that you can have your little kids, right? That's part of the mitzvah.
Is there a machlokes whether chinuch is the son is actually chayav or not?
Good. So there is a machlokes. Rashi and Tosfos in Brachos and in Sukkah, pretty much every time it appears, whether the chiyuv of chinuch devolves on the parent or devolves on the child, which, as Rav Chanan Wasserman notes, begs a larger question, which is, if you say that chinuch devolves on the parent, so then that's fine, because the parent is a bar chiyuva. But to say that the child is chayav midin chinuch is very hard, because how could the Rabbanan be mechayev the child if he's not chayav in lotasur? Right? And rabbinic power derives from lotasur, from which Rav Chanan then argues that the shitot who hold that children are chayav in chinuch must disagree with the Rambam and say that the chiyuv of chinuch doesn't derive from lotasur, must hold like the Ramban, and therefore he comes up with a different lamdus of how to explain chinuch, rabbinic power, in such a way that it could apply even to someone who's not a bar chiyuva and mitzvos. Right? I mean, in a nutshell, Rav Chanan's argument is that the Ramban must hold that the reason that you listen to the rabbis is because they reveal Ratzon Hashem, and doing Ratzon Hashem is a more prior chiyuv than the Torah, right? We listen to the Torah because we're chayav to listen to Dvar Hashem, because Kol Pol Hashem L'Maneyu. But if Chazal are capable of capturing Ratzon Hashem that's not articulated in the Torah, and they capture God's desire that even children should be Mekayim Mitzvos Al Derech Chinuch, then that could directly be Mechayiv them without a pre-existing chiyuv in the Torah, but rather from the same source of chiyuv from which the Torah itself derived its authority. Which is his fascinating lamdus, which, I mean, we could have just done a share on that, but that's a very fascinating lamdus that Rav Chanan develops in the Kuntras Divrei Sofrim. But this is a little bit different, right? Because here we're not talking about rabbinic chiyuv, right? We're not talking about the rabbinic chiyuv of chinuch. We're talking about the chiyuv d'oraisa on Pesach. We got to levincha, right? It seems to be pretty clear that the simplest case of the chiyuv is your little, or includes at least your little children. Hence, the 4 sons that we talk about, right? Without getting into the vortlach in the 4 sons, meaning that appears in Chazal, right? That is a midrash Chazal. The fact that there's an assumption that you are chayiv to educate the tam and she'eno yudei lishol as well, right, indicates you're probably talking about little children. Now, that I think, right, if you just wanted to ask the shaila, and you just wanted an answer without any lamdas, so I think that would be a good piece of evidence, right? You would just say, okay, it's clear that you don't need the child to be a bar chiyuva, right? Unless you want to get into, right, unless you want to follow Zev's lamdos and say, or whoever's lamdos it was, and say that no, maybe really chinuch devolves on the child, and that's why you could be yotzei, and maybe Vigat Levincha devolves on the children, but that would be hard, because we'll see, I think this is in Rav Asher, but I have to look back, which we'll see in a second, whether it was Rav Asher or the Prisker one. That's not true, because you're chayav to, right, you can be yotzei even if your kids are below the age of chinuch, right? Like, I'm clearly yotzei my mitzvah d'oraisa Vigat Levincha with Aaron, who's, who's not bar chiyuva, or he's not even the age of chinuch, he's only 3,
Wait, according to Rafi, this is the same chinuch that's by everything else?
No, so that now, like I said, so I don't think it's relevant anyways, because this isn't the classic one, right? This isn't a question of, can you be mechayiv? This is clearly Daraisa, right? And no one argues that Ketanim are chayiv in Daraisas, right? The only question is, right, it's ironic, right? The only question is whether the rabbis can come up with a chiyuv that the Torah doesn't give them, right? Without the Torah's authority. But no, Vigat Levincha isn't. But so I think it's a good piece of evidence, right, that that you are Yotzei your chiyuv of Vigat Levincha, whether or not your child is chayav. Haraya, little kids, therefore that should carry over to adults who are bar chiyuva, but just not today. But now give me the lumdas, right? Why would you say that this is true? I mean, why is this obviously the case? If you just want to give me a simple pshat, come on. Well, we'll flesh it out a little bit, but if you just want to give me the beginnings of a svara, you literally don't have to go farther than the pasuk. Come on.
Pasuk. Go close. And you shall teach your son, who cares if he's chayav or not?
Yes, exactly. Meaning, the assumption of the shoel was that the father is chayav to help the child be mekayim his chiyuv. Right? And therefore it matters whether the child's a bar chiyuva. But the pshat of the mitzvah is v'higad levincha. It's a chiyuv of the father to educate his children. If it's a chiyuv of father to educate his children, it doesn't matter whether the child is a bar chiyuva. Right? Meaning, right, the assumption of the shoel is that the father is a facilitator of a chiyuv. And therefore it matters that the object of the one who hears the information is a bar chiyuva, right? But the pshat of the mitzvah is that it's a oraisa version of chinuch, right? Meaning, right, if that's the case, so obviously, if that's the case, misvara, you should be chayev. So, like I said, so there are two, but that's, I think, the sort of skeleton of an argument. Rav Asher Weiss and Rav Shalom David Soloveitchik fill in the body of the argument a little bit differently. So I'm gonna run you through the two arguments. So Rav Asher Weiss, to start with him, got this shaila from a Rav Binyamin Benush. I don't know who that is. Now. This Binyamin Benush starts with fascinating lumdus, which again, as Rav Asher Weiss says, I just don't understand why he went this direction. So he says, well, the Mishnah, right, and the expansion, the Gemara in Kufta Zayin, says that if you have no child, so your wife asks you.
Yeah.
But there's a machlokes of whether women are chayav in Sippur Yetziat Mitzrayim. So you say that you're yotzei with the sheila of your wife, even according to the Shitos, that women are not chayiv in Sippur Yetziat Mitzrayim. Right, that was his first attempt at a proof. And then he raised the following chakira. He says, why are you mesupak? So he said, there's two ways at looking at the din of a sheila of a ben. Right? Either it's a din she'ela v'tshuva, and there's a kadimus to the son, meaning and this is the way Reb Chaim is quoted as saying it, is right that the cheftza of the sipur has to be told derech she'ela v'tshuva, right? Meaning that's part of the mitzvah, right? Meaning, and the fact that it's your son, that's just like, right? This is not in Reb Chaim, but he said then the fact that it's your son, that's just a question of who's the best person to ask.
Right.
But if that's the case, so then you would say, so obviously, you have no problem if a child who's not bar chiyuva asks. But if you think that really the ikar mitzvah is to your child, right, and then it's like b'di'evet kiyumim for other people to ask, so maybe you'd say you lose out on a kiyum or something like that by having another person ask, or your child asking not a b'chiyuva. But again, Rav Asher rejects all of this, right? And I honestly, I don't think it's right. Meaning, I agree with Rav Asher, right? Rav Asher says,
I understand the two sides.
Yeah.
It's like a good thing for the son to ask for your say?
Yeah, I don't know. But like I said, I don't think this I think misses the point. And that's what Rav Asher points out. Rav Asher says the argument goes like as follows. He says, look, he says, first of all, I think, and again, like I said, the fact that you're Yotzei, I think, is obvious. But the exact formulation of why you're Yotzei and what does it mean you're Yotzei, right, you can take different directions. So, and you'll see two different formulations. So Rav Asher argues as follows. He says, the fact that the mitzvah is described as Vigata Levincha teaches you that really there's tzvei dinim in the mitzvah. Right? Oh, Ellie's smiling. I did this for you. Right? There's two dinim in the mitzvah. There's one chiyuv on Seder night is Sippur Yetziat Mitzrayim. The second is sort of an intensified biblical chinuch called Vigata Levincha. Right? That in addition to the generic chiyuv of Sippur Yetziat Mitzrayim, part of the mitzvah, the way he puts it, is Lahanchil livno leven bino et sipura shel Yetziat Mitzrayim vet yisodot ha'emunah v'avat Hashem. Right? It is a mitzvah to convey the truths of Yetziat Mitzrayim to the next generation and inculcate the emunah that comes from it. Right. Okay? Now, to be honest, right, and this is something Rav Lichtenstein liked pointing out. Rav Asher doesn't point it out here, but I remember that when at some point Esti Rosenberg, Rav Aaron's daughter, wanted to give a shir that captured her father's mahalach, so she sort of developed her father's mahalach in chinuch in general. Right, Rav Lichtenstein noted that the pashtus in the Gemara, and it's conveyed this way in the Rambam, is that the Talmud Torah itself, definitional to Talmud Torah, is actually teaching Torah. What was the raya? Because the Gemara in Kiddushin, right? Because the Gemara in Kiddushin says, but it's more than that. The Gemara in Kiddushin says, how do you know that only, right, when it's trying to figure out who's Chayav in Talmud Torah, the Gemara says, one who's Chayav to teach his children is Chayav to teach himself. Right? Meaning, it starts with children, which means that Talmud Torah itself, at some level, so Rav Lichtenstein said, right, there's tzvei dinim. Right? In Talmud Torah, and the Yereim is probably the greatest expression of this in terms of how he formulates it, but that's a share for another time. Yereim. Rabbi Elazar of Metz,
Yereim?
Yereim. Rabbi Eliezer of Metz. He's a Baal Tosfot. Anyways.
Now I know.
Fine. So even in Talmud Torah you have this, right? That in Talmud Torah there's obviously Limud Torah, but even a central, if not primary aspect of Talmud Torah is that Talmud Torah is a function of being Moser Torah to the next generation. Right? Or to give you one more raya to this idea, right? This was something that I guess I should call him Rabbi Itamar Rosenzweig pointed out to me once while we were in the gym at YU and we were lifting weights and we were just schmoozing Torah in the gym.
Lifting weights?
Yeah, it was fun. And it was when Itamar was there, we have good discussions. So Itamar pointed out to me once that if you look in the tshuva of the Tajbates argues that there is, right, you're allowed to sell a Sefer Torah for two mitzvos, right, for Pruvu and for sort of Lisa Isha, right? And for Talmud Torah.
Talmud Torah, yeah.
And the Tajbates suggests two reasons, and he says in the second reason, I think they're the same thing. Because part of the reason you have children is to be able to educate them in Talmud Torah. Right? Meaning it's not just that the Chayav Talmud Torah at its core contains a component of conveying it to the next generation, but that Purvu might, it's the sort of the mirror of this. Right? That Purvu intrinsically is connected to the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. Now, so I think this is true. Rav Asher focuses it on the mitzvah of Sippur on Seder night, but the truth is that at some level this is true of Chinuch in general, of Talmud Torah in general. So the way Rav Asher puts it is, he said, look, there's two mitzvos, and he's redayik this in the Rambam, right? He says, if you look at the Rambam in Perek Zayin of Chametz U'Matzah, halacha aleph is mitzvahs aseh shel Torah l'saper b'nisim v'neflot v'chulei. Right, there's a positive mitzvah to tell them miracles and etc. And halacha bet, it's mitzvah lahodia livonim, right, which implies that there's Sippur Yetziat Mitzrayim, but the chiyuv of educating your children, right, it's not a prat in Sippur Yetziat Mitzrayim, right? There's like an added dimension to educating your children on Seder night, right? It's a deraisa version of like intense deraisa version of chinuch.
And the Keteris from the beginning, is there a mitzvah?
What?
And the Keteris from the beginning of Chametz U'Matzah, let's do a separate mitzvah or no?
I'd have to pull a Rambam out of it. And again, I don't know if there's two real mitzvot or it's two elements of the mitzvah. If you have a Rambam, you can look at it. I could pull one out. And then he goes farther, and therefore he says, right, he thinks this is why you never find in Makaros that the child is chayav to tell the story, right? Meaning, to ask about the story. What you have is the God to levincha leman tisaper ba'aznei vincha b'haya yishalcha vincha. I mean, every pasuk is focused on the father.
Yeah.
Right? And again, his raya, now he comes back to the raya, is that, classic Sippur Yetziat Mitzrayim is even tiktanim. So I think, right, that's the data point, right? The fact that this is true is obvious from the fact that ktanim can help their father be yotzei his chiyuv. But why it's true is because he argues that there are these, right, there's these two elements. There's Sippur Yetziat Mitzrayim, and then there's a chiyuv to educate your children. And it doesn't matter, right? It can't matter whether your child is chayav. You, the father, is yotzei in educating the, right? And again, his proof is from the fourth son, right? Ad pitachlo, right? Meaning, we're talking about a son who's clearly not a gia legil chinuch at all.
Right.
So he says again, so there's two, now, and he says that's one thing, and he said the other reason, again, that we ask question answers because it's part of the derech of Sippur. But he says mamanav shach, right? From the vantage point of you just need the Sippur to be told in a question answer format. So who cares who asked the question, right? The format was kept. And if you're talking about the second element, meaning the kiyum and the ben, it's not about the ben being a bar chiyuv, it's about the father being mekayim, the mitzvah of vigada, which I would add is true even in Talmud Torah itself. Right? Meaning this isn't unique to Seder night. Seder night is just sort of an intense expression of what's true in the nature of Talmud Torah in general.
Right. Focus Talmud Torah.
Now, he adds this fascinating lumdus, and he says he'll give you a proof that this would be true. So he notes that if you look in the Tajbeitz, in his Perish to Avadim Hayinu, and the Shibbolei Haleket, quoting his brother of Binyamin, and the Orchos Chaim, they all hold that there is a mitzvah to be Mesaper Yetzias Mitzrayim all year, but a chova only on the first night.
Well, isn't that no? Mitzvah means not how to do it. Oh, sorry. Isn't that kind of obvious?
Let me see if I can pull one of them up. Where's my Bar-Ilan? Is my Bar-Ilan upstairs?
A special.
Where's my computer? You know what? Let me see if I can grab Bar-Ilan and then I can get you their exact formulation. 1 second.
Okay. No, like Shkita right now is a mitzvah. You have to do it. Yeah. Okay. I know.
Zeb, you have the Rambam?
Yeah, I have the Rambam.
Yes, how does the Rambam say it in the Koteret?
Yeah, he has it as one mitzvah.
Right, so you don't have to say it's like two mitzvot, right? But again, you can say that there's this, right? These two aspects to it. There's the derech Sippur, where obviously, the the child can do derech sippur, whether or not he's chayav, and the second is that there's this expression of the generic mitzvah of chinuch, or intensified chinuch, or however you want to take it, where again there what matters is that your child is being educated, or you're educating your child, right? Not is your child chayav in the mitzvah. Right, so again, and that's his main argument, which I find very compelling. Fundamentally, what he adds after that, this notion that you're chayav all year, there's a mitzvah all year. Why does he add that? Because he said, look, the assumption of the question,
a mitzvah apart from regular Talmud Torah.
Yes, right. That there's a unique mitzvah of Sippur Yetziat Mitzrayim, even if there's not a chiyuv. Now, I assume what he wants there is to say that, look, even if it's true that the son isn't chayav in the mitzvah, that doesn't mean that, like, there's no chalos, right? It's not like it doesn't register for the son, right? That would only make sense if there was no mitzvah whatsoever. But if there is, then it would at least count. I mean, if there's a halachic kiyum in learning about Mitzrayim dafka the rest of the year, so then you'd have another svara to add in saying that not only do you have the father being mekayim his mitzvah, but the son is a bar chiyuva, despite the fact that it's not his Pesach. This wouldn't work for the katan, but it would work in the shaila that he was asked about the Israeli son in. Now let me just pull up. Let me pull up one of the Rishonim he quotes. Let's see. There's Shibbolei Haleket. Do you know who the Shibbolei Haleket is? How do you guys hold it? What?
Rabbi Yemen's brother.
Thanks. He's Rabbi Yemen's brother. So proud of you.
Rabbi Yemen Leket.
God. They were Italian.
They lived a couple of generations before.
So the Shibbolei Haleket, Rav Tzidkiah ben Avram Arofe, was born in Rome in 1210.
Right.
And he's a Talmud of the Rosh Mishans. Right? Meaning he's Italian, but he's educated by the Balei HaTosfot.
Oh, so French.
Okay, he's educated by the French Balei HaTosfot. He himself is Italian.
Right. Actually, I had no idea he was a Rishon.
No, he is. He very much is. He's fascinating. The Italian Rishonim are very interesting.
Sound like Ariel. What? Yeah, sound like Ariel. Italian?
Okay, Rabbi Binyamin. Promotion. Yeah.
I bet you can't even name one Provence Rishon.
Something Provence. Let's name.
Not you were telling me the story when you asked Rabbi Ginsburg, you can name one Provence Rishon that was against drinking on Purim.
Yeah. Okay. So here he says. Mitzvah. I have to find this. It's a very long piece. Mitzvah. I tried just searching Binyamin in the piece, but he quotes his brother 29 times in this one paragraph. There's one. It's not really helpful. Oh God. Okay, let's try one of the other ones he quotes.
Yeah, it's crazy. Wait, how many times?
29, just in this one section.
What section? Paragraph.
It's not like a paragraph. It's Siman Reish Yud Ches, and can we try one of the other ones? Let's see if they're shorter. The Orchos Chaim. Try the Orchos Chaim.
77.
Look, Halavai, you should have brothers that are of this level of Talmidei Chachamim, and you can quote them. It would be very nice.
I have a friendship box. Not really friends. Keep going.
Okay, Seder Leil Pesach.
Wait, what did you do? Oh, yes, I understood. But I said, did I get it?
Okay, let's see. Simen Lamed Ches. Simen Lamed Ches. Lamed Ches in the Orchos Chaim is his. Because here's what he writes. The Orchos Chaim writes, Avadim, Perush, Atam Meshiv L'Tinakot Sha'alu Manishtana, Ki Avadim Hayinu, etc. Yesh Lana Zav Galini Gozga, V'az Kol Mesaper, I don't know. I don't know. I don't see where he's saying this in this paragraph. Okay, I give up. I'll take his word for it. I'll look for it. I'll look for it later. Okay. But anyway, so that's Rav Asher Weiss's formulation of this mitzvah.
Right.
Okay. Now there's a slightly different formulation by Rav Meshulam David Soloveitchik. What?
Oh no, you kind of stopped mid-sentence.
No, I'm just opening up the piece by Rav Meshulam David. So this is, like I said, in one of that goes I have it on my shelf, or which is not opening. Why is it not opening? Oh.
Because.
1 second. Okay. Why my computer needs to drive me nuts today, I don't know.
Oh, did you ask?
Okay. So this is on page Sadi Tet of the Haggadah Shaila Torah. So he was asked this question as well, right? Agabe ben chutz laaretz shabal eretz Yisrael v'chayav b'yom tov sheni ulam banav gam b'eretz Yisrael. So he had the flip question, right? What if someone keeps 2 days in Eretz Yisrael? Right, he just asked the flip question. You have a ben Eretz, someone who keeps 2 days in Eretz Yisrael and his sons sit with him. Okay, same question. So he says, V'nir ed mitzvah v'gadol v'incha eino kiyum hanase b'ben ela chiyuv hamuta la'av l'kayim in a mitzvah zo al yedei haben. Right, that's a very technical formulation, right? It's not a chiyuv that the father fulfills through his child, right? It's a father's obligation, and the child is an object, not a subject, right? Acha mitzvah k'shma yishala av. V'alkein pashat chayav av b'yom tov sheni b'mitzvah gadol v'ncha'av b'shabanav he b'nei Eretz Yisrael. Now he does prove it from the general chiyuv of chinuch, and he says even in the regular mitzvah of chinuch we say lilamdo Torah. Oh, no, I'm sorry. The opposite, right? I connected it. He says the opposite. He says, why don't you include Sippur Yetziat Mitzrayim in the list of the chiyuvin that father does for his son? And he says, because he thinks it's different. He says, this is actually good lumdos, right? He says, by Mila, Pidyon Haben, the normal mitzvah of chinuch and the mitzvah of helping your child get married, those are all chiyuvim of the son, that the father is obligated to participate in helping the son be mekayim his mitzvah. Right? I mean, it's clear, right? By bris milah, fundamentally the son is chayav, the father is just the primary person responsible for making sure the son is mekayim his own mitzvah. So the fact that the Gemara doesn't include v'higadah levincha tells you that it's distinct from the mitzvahs in Kiddushin, which he argues are, again, children mitzvot, where the father is helping the child be mekayim it, as opposed to v'higadah levincha, which is a chiyuv for the father to educate. And the way he puts that is sham, right? The 4 chiyuvim mentioned in Kiddushin are a kiyum ha-mitzvah b'ben, who the alav lios molo padoi, right? The son needs to have a milah or a pidyon ha-ben, ela da Torah hetila mitzvah zu alav, but the Torah gave the father the chiyuv. Aval b'mitzvahs v'higadah levincha, ein kiyum ha-mitzvah toli b'ben klal, ve'ein ha-ben ela kechefza shel mitzvah shel ha'av, right? He's right in English. The son is an object, not a subject. In Hebrew, he's a chefza, not a gafra. Right? He's the chefza of Yetziat Mitzrayim. Right? Okay. And now Rav Meshulam David then adds a second element to it, and he says, okay, based on this, he was asked a second question: are you chayav to educate all your children, or does one of them suffice? Right? That would be a nafkamina. Right? Right? Meaning he says, if you understood v'higadah levincha was a chiyuv like Mila, right? Your child has to have a Mila, and you have to make sure it happens. So then you'd be chayav to educate, right? Then you'd be chayav to be mekayim v'higadah levincha every year to all your children.
Right, without a doubt.
Correct.
Right.
But if you think it's a chiyuv on the father, right, meaning the father is to be mekayim the mitzvah of v'higadah levincha, and the son is the chefza, right? So maybe not.
Right, could it go either way then?
Right, now it could, right? Right? That's the way he has, sorry, that's the way I was posing the suffix. He puts it slightly different. He says, a suffix bazeh, hu diyesh le'ayin, ma din b'Sippur Yetziat Mitzrayim, im zeu din shetzarach liz b'tzura shel v'higadah levincha, v'inkem sagi gam b'haggadah leven echa. Right, he puts it slightly differently. Is it v'higadah levincha is just a din in the tsura of the she'ela v'tshuva, in which case you need one son, right? Or is it a din in education, in which case, right, you have to be mekayim it on all your children? All right, you could go both ways. You're right. This is a different question, right? Is it that the chiyuv is to have your derech she'ela tshuva through your child, right? Or is it that a chiyuv to educate, in which case it would be all the children? And to this, Meshulam David said, the pshita shetzarach lasaper l'chol habanim shezeu mitzvahs v'higadah levincha mitzvah lo dia levanim. Right, that's meduyuk in the Rambam. V'zelo stam prat b'mitzvah sibur sheyehei b'tzura shel gadol leven. It's not a din just in the tsura of how you tell the story. Elzo mitzvah b'fnei atzma l'odia levanim, like Rav Asher, v'tzarach l'odia l'kulam. And then he asks, and then he has one more point, and he says, okay, but at what point does this stop? Right? Meaning, what exactly is the nature of the chiyuv? If this is anything like chinuch, then there should be an age at which it stops. Right? Dafka, right? It should be only for children up to a certain age, because at some point, right, a gadol becomes obligated in their own chiyuv, and the father no longer has the primary chiyuv of education. Right, now you don't have to say this, right? You could say that's not true, meaning this is what's unique about v'higadah levincha, is that even when the normal mitzvah of chinuch is not b'malot tokvo, v'higadah levincha is.
Right.
But he doesn't take that direction. He says, Ulam yesh la'ayin ad eze gil yeshed ha-mitzvah v'higadah levincha mistaber d'begedolim lo shayach mitzvah zu u'mashikazu Rambam v'maya ben gadol v'chacham ein kavanaso gadol mamash el kavanaso shu mevugar ve'eno katan v'lo shamanu shaben nasui chayav lios eitzel avi b'lal seder kidei she'avi v'kayim b'mitzvahs v'higadah levincha. Right, so he says it must end at some point. Right, it must be that once it's not about gadol katan, meaning before and after 13. It's At what point is the child self-sufficient? And his raya, and this is a very brisker raya, is that if it weren't true, then every child would be chayav to be by their parents every year to enable their father to mekayim the mitzvah, right? But, which is weird, but this is also a bad logic. I would say that this takes it too far, because according to this logic, right, what Rav Shalom David seems to be saying, strikingly, is that you are chayav to make sure that all your kids come to your Seder every year until they come to, which I don't think is a plausible halachic conclusion here. Okay, so just to summarize though, what Rav Asher and Rav Shalom David say in both in slightly different ways, and Rav Shalom David taking it farther, is that obviously, right, the conclusion is that you don't need a child to be chayiv in the mitzvah, whether that's because he's a katan, which is what proves it, or because the father's in Eretz Yisrael keeping 2 days, or vice versa, that the child is in Eretz Yisrael, is in Chutz La'aretz. But why that's true, so they both say what you learn from this is that, right, in addition to the question-answer component being integral to the way you tell the story, there's clearly an aspect to the mitzvah which is educational, in which the father's chayav to educate his children, not, and I like this formulation by Rav Shalom David, it's not that, right, the son has a chiyuv and the father has to be mekayim it through him. Right, sorry, help him be mekayim his own chiyuv, right? Right, it's not like Mila. It's that the father has to educate and pass on the Mizurah. And therefore, obviously, it doesn't matter whether the son is a bar chiyuv or not, he has that chiyuv. Now, Rabbi Shalom David takes it farther because he seems to imply that it's a chiyuv of the father to educate all his children every year until they reach this magic number or magic state. Right, that you don't have to say, right? You could just say, and this is why I think Rav Asher's is a bit softer, right? The Rabbi Shalom David takes it as like a chiyuv, right? Rav Asher says, no, there's the fundamental mitzvah of Sippur, and then there's an added kiyum of educating your children in, and that kiyum obviously comes whenever your children are there. That doesn't mean that you're not Yotzei Sippur Yetziat Mitzrayim if you don't make sure all your children show up to your Seder, right? Which would be a quite radical application of it. So I think the fact that Rav Shalom David seems to imply that, right, shows that he takes this a bit farther in terms of the nature of the obligation. But Rav Asher takes a similar approach, but softer. But like I said, while Rav Shalom David distinguishes it from normal chinuch explicitly, and Rav Asher doesn't mention it, I think there is at least an element of this in Talmud Torah in general, hence the Lilmod, Lalamed Atzmo, Limudim by chinuch. And since we've lost one member of our shir to his chavrusa, we'll call it a day for now. Okay, guys? Talk to you later.